Hello and welcome to Voice of Cognizant, your voice, your way. I'm your host, Neerja. Together, we're going to be taking a trip down inspiration lane as I bring to you riveting conversations with Cognizant's leaders and associates. Now, it's a brand new year and we have an interesting theme in keeping with new beginnings. This episode is all about growth. So let's get started. We're starting the show with Center Stage, where we shine the spotlight on our leaders. We believe new beginnings need to happen with a flourish. And to set the tone, we've got just the headliner for this special moment. Taking center stage on this very first episode of the Voice of Cognizant podcast is Rajesh Nambiar, Chairman India and President Digital Business and Technology at Cognizant. Oh yeah, we've got just the star power we need. Welcome to the show, Rajesh. Happy New Year. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Neerja. Pleasure to be with you on this show. This new year has been fantastic, and we're all very hopeful for 2022. And what a nice way to start, with the Voice of Cognizant. So excited to be here.
Thank you for starting us off on such a bright and positive note. It's just what 2022 needs. Rajesh, we certainly find ourselves looking into the new year with hope and optimism that it holds something good for us all. Now, if you were to single out three big, let's say, overarching Cognizant ideas that are going to impact our lives, that are going to stay with us through the year, irrespective of role or function, what would they be?
Look, first, we believe in putting our people first and holistically, right? And so whether it is the health or safety or career, mental well-being, and of course, the learning and development, they're all our priorities, right?
Yeah.
But since you talked about 2022, Neerja, that's going to be an exciting year for all our associates. And if I must choose one word, it'll perhaps be growth. When I say growth, it's growth of the company as well as the growth of all our people, right? So we are investing more in growth of our people than any other time in the past, right? So as you probably know, Cognizant has made very significant progress as an organization in being a leader in the digital space, right? Which means we have more opportunities for our people in the modern digital world, as you may, than most organizations today, right? And also we have one of the industry's best digital training and upskilling programs for our associates, because we want to make sure that they are digital ready for the roles of today and of course of the future as well, right? So we're also committed to supporting higher education, for instance. That's one of the things that we introduced recently for all our young associates. So we have tied up with some of the best institutes, like this, Neerja, you've been around at the block, whether it's BITS Pilani or IIT Jodhpur. What we're trying to do is we're widening that network. So this is an opportunity for all our associates to continue to learn and grow your skills, right? And of course, the broader portfolio of the new age skills while on the job, which means that you don't have to leave the company to go and do a master's or whatever, but you could do that within what you're going to do. So this is all fantastic, right? So, and as we are making sure our incredibly talented people have more and more opportunities to grow their careers, right? We've also made some things within the company called internal job moves program. And again, it's a fantastic example of how we use a platform to ensure that people are able to advance their careers much better than before. So, long answer to a short question, but I'm incredibly positive about 2022. As a company, I believe Cognizant has a better value proposition for employees today than ever before.
That's fantastic. Leadership, growth, opportunities, all words everybody loves to hear. And it all sounds perfectly substantial. And it's a great example, Rajesh, I think, of how you provide the wind beneath the wings of your associates. And that's going to take them places in the coming year for sure. How do you see Cognizant reimagine this year? Do you think there's any exciting directions that will make headlines, let's say, in the industry?
Yeah, look, headlines, we do create headlines. When I think about 2022, there are several things that makes Cognizant a great company to work for and work with for our clients and so on and so forth, right? So for starters, and I just mentioned this notion of employee value proposition, we've created a new employee value proposition, which is very well articulated and much more holistic than I'm sure our associates will be able to relate to how Cognizant is a company where you build build a long-term career, right? But if you turn our focus a little bit to how we are as a company positioned in the marketplace, right? The way we position in a marketplace, Nirja, is that we are truly a digital and cloud company, right? So what does it really mean? So one of our strategic priorities as a company is accelerating digital. And we've been sort of sharpening our ability to support our clients as they transform into software-driven enterprises. As you know, this pandemic has not only changed everything, but it's also made a lot more companies a far more digital, a lot more sooner, so that we need to be there to sort of support them. So since 2019, we as a company, we have invested more than $2 billion in buying the right companies to accelerate our progress against, we called out a few digital battlegrounds, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. Our acquisitions are truly focused on furthering our leadership against this digital battleground, as we called it. So one is, of course, digital engineering. Two is data and AI. And the third one is cloud, of course. And then the fourth one is IoT. So these are the four digital battlegrounds, as I see. And these are the capabilities that enable our clients to compete as modern digital business. Because today, Nirja, you would see that every business is a digital business. It's not about, only the tech companies did that. And, you go around and see everybody is a digital business, right? So, and we believe that to enable a company to become better at being digital, they need to do a lot more things. So, for example, our digital engineering business is now one of the largest globally. If you look at our IoT business, which is very related to, how companies go digital in some of the areas, some of the industries, that has actually doubled since, 2019. We recently announced, actually 2-3 days ago, we announced a Cloud Plus practice group, which is now host everything cloud for Cognizant. So including, what we call these hyperscaler business groups. So a lot happening in terms of structuring ourselves, ensuring that we are positioning to go out and win at the market. So to answer your question, my excitement about the new Cognizant comes from a few things that I've mentioned about, but very specifically, if you want to summarize, we have incredibly talented teams, world-class portfolio of solutions and capabilities, and, truly a strong market position, right, which is so important for us to go win in the market. So I would say, Neerja, we as a company are in a stronger position than ever before to go after the growth in the history of Cognizant. So I'm so excited about what is in store for us.
I think I'm getting goosebumps just hearing about it. It does sound exciting. And you're right, you do need to be so digitally savvy these days. It's also amazing, Rajesh, don't you think, to see this kind of a trajectory despite what's been going on in the world in terms of this pandemic. So I think Cognizant is sort of leading by example when it comes to what can be achieved irrespective of the socioeconomic climate. But that brings me to the climate within the organization itself. Rajesh, we've seen workplace culture adapt in such inspiring ways to embrace the reality of this remote work situation, and creating a safe space both physically and emotionally at the workplace has never been more important. So what leadership constant do you think stands out as invaluable?
Absolutely. Look, as we were talking before the podcast, in my mind, the pandemic has been an inflection point, right? And it has almost changed everything that we do, right?
Yeah.
And while we're all proud that Cognizant for sure, and the tech industry in general, we've been able to grow faster despite the pandemic because of the work from anywhere culture that we have in the organization and in the industry today. I mean, we were in the tech industry was fortunate to do this. Many others were not fortunate to do, despite of the pandemic. But there are certainly things that we miss from being in the office, right? And informal water cooler chat and so on and so forth. How do you sort of bump into your colleague on the corridor? So the engagement that we had with each other across all our teams is totally missing, right? Yeah. So of course, as a company, we have done a lot to substitute that with virtual engagement activities. But still, there is really no substitute for meeting each other informally and in the office and in the water cooler and whatnot. But why is it important? In my mind, this builds an organizational culture, and there are clearly there are several elements that creates an organizational culture. And in my mind, one important aspect of that culture is this concept of creating psychological safety in the workplace. Of course, there are several other elements, and I thought I'll take a minute to talk about what I mean by psychological safety. I had this fortune of working with Professor Amy Edmondson, one of the professors of leadership and management at Harvard Business School, who has championed this concept around the world. And I've personally used very, very effectively with my teams. Looking back, I can confidently say that this concept has actually compounded value. So what does it really mean, right? So let me see if I can, try to summarize it as shortly as possible. When establishing a larger culture of psychological safety, the emphasis is on creating an environment where people feel safe to speak up with confidence, or stand up for the right thing, or own up mistakes without fear of being perceived negatively, and so on and so forth. So it is where colleagues trust and respect each other and feel accepted. It's like the foundation of a winning team. And this concept, by the way, of psychological safety is not very unique to our industry or your industry or anybody else's industry. Right. It is across the board. So I think it's important to have this psychological safety built into our culture of any organization. And I believe that we do that, very, very consciously, to have a very productive work culture where people feel very safe to speak up. So in my mind, that is one big element of these organizational culture that I tend to focus on, and I believe that that's something which will be very, very important for organizations in the future.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure it resonates with everybody listening in as well. Speaking up without fear of grave consequences. Psychological safety, very well put and very important to practice, yes. But first and foremost, acknowledge the need for, so one can definitely benefit from taking a leaf out of the Cognizant culture book, so to speak. Speaking of culture again, we do have many young achievers as part of the Cognizant community. So Rajesh, is there anything you think you've learned from engaging with a member from the young achievers community at work?
Look, I spend a lot of time with the young achiever community, and I do have a regular meeting with totally, I would pick about 15, 20 of our folks who joined from the sort of the Gen Z population, if you may. Mm-hmm. And I've always learned more from them than probably they were learning from me in many ways, right? I also feel that the culture and what they value is very, very different from the traditional way people have looked at work, people have looked at employment, and so on and so forth. So I think the Gen Zs value freedom and responsibility, and try to overcome challenges on their own. So they're not very hierarchical. Culturally, they're very different. If you go back to at least my generation, boss was right all the time. But in today's generation, just because the boss said, nothing happens, right? So it is important for us to relate to them, and many things that like environment and sustainability. All of these are so much important to the current generation than probably the previous generation. So I feel that we all, as leaders of companies and organizations, we have to learn how to really lead the newer generations like Gen Z, because it is not the same as leading the previous generations and so on and so forth. And I believe that I learn from them every day. I speak to them. So I'm a big learner when I engage with our Gen Z population. Neerja.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Rajesh. And I think, in a way, it also does boil down to what you mentioned before about psychological safety, is sort of creating that space for them where, like you said, back in the day, we would be afraid if a boss sent an email, but now you sort of have that mutual learning and mutual respect, and that's a great culture to thrive in. And finally, Rajesh, now this is the first ever Voice of Cognizant podcast, and we love our exclusives. We want all the hot buzz, so we intend kicking it off right here with you. Can you share with us what we call the VOC exclusive, something you have never ever spoken of before?
Well, that's going to be a tough one. Let me see if I can narrate something, which is I probably haven't spoken to anyone ever. I turned 50 and I was in Singapore, and I used to live there for several years. And I remember looking back and seeing what I would have done differently throughout my career, throughout my life. And frankly, there weren't too many things that I would have done any differently. But there was this one thing which which kept bothering me, which kept coming up, that I would have loved to have learned a lot more music, especially, I love guitar as an instrument, and I would have loved to have played guitar. So I was thinking about it, and I suddenly it dawned on me saying that why wouldn't we start now? So guess what? So I went and hired a guitar coach. When I was and I bought this nice guitar. Spent some money and then got some very good guitar and all of that, and then started learning guitar. For a few months. That was absolutely a fantastic time for me to sort of spend with this. I was enjoyed the process of sort of strumming guitar and then really sort of trying to learn something. And again, guess what? After that, I had to move to Gurgaon, which is where I live now. And of course, with the pandemic and whatnot. So just to let you know that all the nice stuff that I did for about a few months kind of came to a grinding halt. And now the guitar is more part of my furniture rather than unfortunately. But guess what? I am determined to get back into it at some point in time. You know what, Nirja? Next time we do this podcast, I would. I mean, again, it depends on how long it takes. Maybe I will learn a little more by then, and maybe I'll strum some notes for you. Right?
Rajesh, we are just as determined as you are to learn it, to hear you play it. So you'd better keep your word. This is officially the teaser for an episode in the future where Rajesh will be performing for us on guitar.
I hope so too.
Well, Rajesh, I think needless to say, you've made this first ever episode of the Voice of Cognizant podcast very, very memorable. Thank you for bringing your charm, your expertise, and your warmth to this show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Nirja. Appreciate it, and truly, it's an honor for me to be in your first show. I loved the conversation. I would absolutely look forward to listening to the rest of them as well in other series with other folks. So I believe that this will be a huge hit for us, for all of us, the Voice of Cognizant. So thank you for doing this.
I'm about to bring you all the updates on What's Up Cognizant. Let's find out. The 7th edition of the Cognizant Health Challenge has begun. The 8-week-long event will include AI-powered diet and workout plans, virtual gym access, celeb-led Fun Friday events, well-being sessions, and prizes, all available for our associates virtually. Download the Healthify Me app and register with your Cognizant email ID. Early bird signups get access to a 30-day Healthify Studio plan, so hurry. Get excited because it's now time for Cognizant's Got Talent. Now, on the very first edition of Cognizant's Got Talent on Voice of Cognizant, we figured it would only be fitting to bring on the musician behind the incredible podcast jingle that will hopefully be etched in your minds forever. Rajesh Ramachandran has been with Cognizant for over 15 years and is currently a product consultant in the healthcare product configuration business unit. Turns out he's also a very talented musician. Let's give a warm Voice of Cognizant welcome to Rajesh Ramachandran. Hi Rajesh, a very happy new year to you and welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you Neerja. Happy New Year. Thank you for inviting me. This is a great opportunity.
Rajesh, this must be such an exciting time for you because you have just created a little piece of magic. You've captured the sound of Cognizant. Tell me about the making of this jingle and where the idea came from.
Thank you for calling it magic. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. So working for the Cognizant Podcast jingle, it was a great opportunity because I am indeed so passionate about good music. We wanted to do something like this for a long time now, and once this came in, it was an opportunity to grab and just run with it. So yeah, it was amazing creating this, and I hope everybody likes it.
Oh, I'm sure everyone's going to love it. Could you tell me about the instruments you used to create this piece of art?
I'm always happy to talk about how this was done and the sounding of it. Let me just start by giving you a little bit of a background on this. We started off talking about bringing in the sounds of Cognizant to be part of this jingle, sort of like sounds from the office that we are so used to, the coffee machines, the water dispensers, stuff like that, computer sounds, all sorts of things that we would listen during the day, right? But these past 2 years, that sounding has entirely changed, right? We are more used to the tone of Teams, MS Teams itself, and sounds from our own homes, and somehow we are still able to be productive. So since we have made that move, we wanted to make it sound as musical as possible. At the same time, the thought process behind it was to provide some kind of a freshness in the morning. This is probably the first thing that we would want to hear. So to bring in that energy, to bring in that freshness, we wanted to include instruments that would give that sort of a feel, right? Which is why I went with the usage of soft horns, which is kind of associated with bringing that sort of an energy level. And of course, you would note the iconic instrument called santoor, which is our own Indian instrument that we have sort of used, which was actually invented, or it made its way into India from Kashmir and still resounds all the way down south till Kanyakumari, right? So we wanted to have that one India, one Cognizant sort of a thread running through the jingle as well, which is why we used some of those.
That is such a cool idea, Rajesh. And I've got to say, it's also a lesson in music, hearing about this jingle. You learn about so many instruments. I think I'm going to go find the coffee pot in my own kitchen and start making some music.
Thank you.
And also hearing the satisfaction in your voice from having created something like this is truly testament to the organization as well, right? For enabling you to grow in different directions, career-wise, passion-wise, there's room for it all at Cognizant, which brings me to this question. What is your day job like, and how does the culture at Cognizant sort of help you water the seeds of your career and your interests side by side?
Absolutely. So, my career with Cognizant started off as a programmer analyst about 15 years odd back in Chennai. And then I had a short stint of about 3 years at on-site with a client. And then I came back to Coimbatore, where I was for about 7-8 years. And right now in Kochi for the past 3 years. Right now I am a product consultant, as you mentioned. The growth from being a programmer analyst to a product consultant over these past 15 years with quite a lot of really exciting projects and opportunities has been really good. And the best thing about it is that I never had to compromise on my passion, which is music. I've always had opportunities to focus on it, to actually showcase it in several of our organizational events, on BU events, etc. Just as an example, the Namachennai flood relief concert, which was held across the organization globally, like a fundraiser, right? We were able to participate in that and sort of host it for the associates in Coimbatore a few years back. And then right now I'm part of this beautiful team in Cognizant Kochi, which is called Tarang. So this is Kochi's own music band, and we've been able to make life easy for all of us associates during this lockdown period.
Well, that's such a wonderful atmosphere to thrive in, and it sounds like Cognizant has its very own rock stars. Thank you, Rajesh, for bringing your brand of music and talent to the very first edition of Cognizant's Got Talent. I, for one, am hoping to hear a whole album from you soon.
Fingers crossed, Neerja.
All right.
Well, that was a lovely conversation. Let's get into some tech talk, shall we? It's time to get technical on this special segment, Tech Talk, where we bring to you insights from our subject matter experts worldwide on the latest digital business and technology trends. Follow our Cognizant industry experts as they share their take on various topics such as digital, strategy, leadership, and more. In the latest, do read, as industry clouds emerge, business must get ready for the next cloud rush. Do check out the Digitally Cognizant blog, that's digitally.cognizant.com to get the latest updates. We now have the Cognizant Edge, where we meet and fully get to know our young achievers. On today's edition of the Cognizant Edge, we meet Subarna Mitra, Now, she's young, she's full of life, and she is Generation Cognizant, or Gen Z as we like to call it. She joined Cognizant as part of Cognizant's internship program and has been with Cognizant since April 2021. Subarna, hi, how are you doing today?
Hi, Neerja. Thank you for the awesome introduction. I'm doing good, and I hope everyone here is doing well.
Starting a career with a company is always like the first day of school, right? There's so much excitement, and it's been such an interesting journey for you. You started at Cognizant as part of their internship program, which eventually led you to where you are today. So how would you describe that journey, and how do you think, Subarna, it helped shape the start of your career? It's a very exciting time for you.
Absolutely, Neerja. So we had college placements during the third year of our college, and that was the time when I was keenly interested in Cognizant, and we had an internship program as well. So I thought, why not have an internship program, see what a company works like, have a little sneak peek of the things that we are supposed to do in the starting phase of a career. And that was honestly one of the best decisions that I've taken in life. So when I joined the program, I was given the role of a GCP intern, which stands for Google Cloud Platform. And honestly, we were given such a beautifully designed curriculum. Like if you see the whole curriculum, you can actually notice how each and every part of the curriculum is actually a pivotal role for the end goal that you have for yourself. We had trainers who came every day, cleared every and little doubt that we had. We had hands-on assignments, we had assessments that were, shaping the way we think. The more we do it on a practical platform, the more clearer it gets for us. So I think that was a great thing as well. And apart from that, just getting inside a company, seeing how the industry works, it wasn't something that we had, previously seen in college. So it was a very new experience. And all of us in the cohort, we were extremely excited for it. There was something that we were ready to learn every day. So I think that was the most amazing part.
How cool, Subarna. And just hearing the energy in your voice, I want this entire narrative you gave me to be turned into a movie. That's how exciting the plot was. And what
absolutely can be, Neerja.
What a great way to kickstart your career as well. Surely it must be so exciting to find yourself learning and churning with, one of the greats, with a company such as Cognizant. Through your, time at Cognizant, what role do you find yourself playing in the growth of the company? And what do you say you bring to the table?
So thankfully, when I completed my internship, I got a call, where I was asked to give a brief concept of my understanding. And very soon I became part of a very beautiful project that I'm working as a programmer analyst trainee right now. And the best part is the seniors over there, they are extremely well versed with the topic, and they are so generous to us. They give us walkthroughs. In spite of their busy schedule, we know how busy they are, and they clear each and every doubts, because we tend to have a lot of doubts because it's extremely new to us. They clear out each and every doubts. They're understanding the pace of learning that we are having, and they're assigning us work according to what we can take. I feel that every day is an opportunity to learn at Cognizant, Neerja, because the team that I've been, and this is my first professional project, because I'm seeing the team to be so diligent. Everyone here has a team spirit, is working, and is actually considering us a good part of the project, delivering us walkthroughs, and everything together seems so wonderful. So it just feels like this thing is something that I'm actually looking forward to. If the team is so beautiful together, I think work becomes a very beautiful part of our life then.
Well, you're making me want to join Cognizant now. It sounds so fun. And it takes two to make a thing go right, as the song goes. And Cognizant and you together sound like a match made in heaven, Subarna. So that's very exciting for you.
I completely agree.
You're also fairly new in the system. And I think this is a good chance for us to reveal a little something about who you are as a person for everyone listening in. So let's say there's a wiki page with your name on it. What's the first nugget of information that we see on that page?
First of all, a wiki page with my name on it sounds extremely fun.
We can make one right now. And hey, if we manage to make that movie, your name will be on a wiki page.
I would love to see that, obviously. But yes, I consider myself as a dynamic person. I like to explore new things in life, so that's a start. So I've always loved the idea of reading and expanding our horizons along with it. And this is something again that I've found it to be a good part in Cognizant, where, I've seen this book club communities across Yammer specifically, where people give suggestions, they give their reviews according to each and every book that they read. And sometimes I've even bought the suggestions and reviews. So I've bought some books according to that, and they have turned out to be so amazing books. So I think a community where we can, exchange our thoughts on books, that's a great idea. And apart from that, I also like, dancing. I've been a trained dancer in Kathak genre from a very small age. I also tend to enjoy music a lot, especially classical. So when I saw the Live Well sessions that had been arranged by Cognizant, for fun, which is great. Who does that, And it was just not for us associates. The best part of it was for our family as well. So Cognizant is actually bringing our family together with us in a way as well. When I saw the Live Well sessions, there was something important, a very beautiful detail that we must not miss, is that there was a band who came up with different songs, but there was something about the choice of songs. I noticed that these songs were sung in different languages. It covered almost all the languages in India, at least. So, what a beautiful concept that each and every one on the call can relate to at least one song, can relate to their mother tongue. And this inclusion, this respect given to diversity, I think it's just beautiful.
Well, that certainly comes through in all the conversations I've had so far. And I think it's certainly one of the overarching themes of this podcast itself is how, Cognizant is such a wonderful place to grow, and how it's just filled with diversity and inclusivity. So thanks for being a part of this podcast, Subarna, and all the best.
Thank you, Neerja. It has been an awesome session. Thank you so much.
Wow, what an eventful first show it's been here on Voice of Cognizant. It's been all about learning and looking forward, sprinkled with positivity and fun. Let's wrap up with an interesting fact about Cognizant. Did you know that Cognizant was founded on January 26th, 1994? That's a nice bit of trivia for you, and that's a wrap. For more exciting times, join us next time on our very own podcast. Until then, it's me, your host, Neerja, signing off. Here's to growing leaps and bounds in 2022. Bye.